Harper One and Harper Audio present Backstage Pass by Paul Stanley. Read by Sean Pratt. Business and Success. Chapter 1. Let the past be the past. Last spring I returned to West 211th Street in Upper Manhattan, to the one-bedroom apartment where I grew up. It hadn't been a happy home, to put it mildly. I hadn't been in that building in 60 years. I'd driven by it once or twice, and I hadn't had a good feeling when I did. This time I had a specific reason to go there, along with my wife Erin, and my oldest son Evan. My 3 younger children, Colin, age 12, Sarah, age 10, and Emily, age 7, were with me, and I wanted them to see the place where I'd started my life. I hoped it would help them understand the difference between their lives and mine. Years ago, I had visited the area in Queens where my family moved when we left Upper Manhattan. Queens is where I lived when I went to high school, started playing music, and met a bass player named Gene Simmons, and eventually started Kiss. But after that visit, I fell into a few weeks of feeling miserable. It sort of confirmed what I had always thought. These places from my past held only negative associations for me. Still, I thought it was important to give it another try. I hoped this visit to 211th Street would offer a beautiful chance to give concrete reality to the stories I've told my kids over the years, to make my childhood memories into something tangible for them. So we went back, or I should say, I went back, since they'd never been there. I was born with a crumpled mass of cartilage instead of a right ear, a facial difference known as macrotia. From the time I can remember, people stared at me, both kids and adults. People seemed to detach a deformity from the person. Instead of being treated like a human being, I was treated like an object of curiosity in some cases, I guess, but most often an object of disgust. When I started to attend the elementary school right next door to our apartment, PS 98, I didn't have any friends, but I was always the center of attention. And that sort of attention felt just horrific to a 5-year-old. I wanted to disappear, or hide, but there was no place to go. It was one thing when somebody stared at me, that was bad enough. But when someone yelled out at me, that drew other people's eyes to me. Everyone would look at me, scrutinize me. I felt violated and threatened to my core. These were the worst moments. Like the kid who would point and yell, "Stanley, the one-eared monster." All I could think was, "You're hurting me." On top of that, I never had a shoulder to cry on. My parents insisted on not talking about it. Kids need parents. Kids need protection. When my parents didn't empathize with me and didn't want to hear about my problems, I felt cut off from everybody. For most of my life, West 211th Street had represented just one thing for me: pain. But now, as I drove up toward the apartment, I wondered whether it would be different. We arrived and walked through the entry arch to the 5-story walk-up and stepped into a paved space surrounded by the building. To call it a courtyard would make it sound too nice. Memories started to rush back. Crossing the yard, I suddenly remembered jumping on another kid's back and biting him. This kid had taunted me and spat in my face. The courtyard triggered the memory because I'd been there one day with my mom and explained to her that this kid had been bullying me and hinted that I might want or need her help dealing with the situation, and she had told me, a kindergartner, to fight my own battles. "Don't come crying to me," she said, which led to my attacking the kid. Entering the apartment, my initial reaction was surprise at how small the place was. Obviously, when we remember something in one scale, based on our size and stature as a child, and we go back, it's startling. The building was also a bit run down, but it was the size that really surprised me. As small as I remember it, this was so much smaller. And 4 of us had lived in it: my parents, my sister, and me.